Hot damn, we got a lot of information for Warhammer 40k 9th edition. So let's get right into it after this quick intro. Welcome everyone to Warhammer 40k news and, let me be honest, mostly speculation about Warhammer 40k 9th edition. So the week got started great because we got a show on Twitch from Games Workshop, which is called Warhammer 40k Daily, which features Stu Blackman, who is the head designer for Warhammer 40k. So we're getting it from the mouth of the guy that basically designed 9th edition and also 8th edition. So great content. The only problem with the content is that 15 minutes after it airs, we get Warhammer 40k community page that goes up with a post that basically details everything that was talked about in the 30 minutes, so you might as well just wait 15 minutes and read that article. You get everything there. Except for you sometimes do get a few little insights that are outside, but 99% of the time so far, what you see in that post is what you get in that 30 minutes. Let's start off with just some news about Necrons, which I do love Necrons. I have a Necron army, but if you're gonna start a new show, start a new thing that we're gonna have, they could have pick something a little more exciting than talking about Necron Destroyers, which is awesome that they did because Necron Destroyers are going to get a bunch of cults and, you know, a bunch of new things. So that's awesome, but at the same time, I think people really wanted to hear about the rules that affect all factions, not just one faction, which is honestly not one of the most popular factions in the game anyway. So that was a little bit of a downer, but still pretty cool to see, you know, Necrons getting expanded. Always good when any army gets expanded, except for maybe Tau. But besides that, great news. So Tuesday we got things a little more rolling. We got them talking about Warhammer 40k Crusade, which is basically the narrative version of Warhammer 40k in a more formal, structured thing, instead of just being like, make up your own funny missions. Here, we're going to give you some funny missions occasionally and play some games, figure it out yourself. This was kind of the way of Games Workshop saying, hey, we're going to have a formal structure to how narrative play works. Now, I love narrative play. I just don't get to play it at all because most of my players that I play with are competitive, but this is great for narrative players. The only problem I see with it though is that if GW does not support it or doesn't really go hog wild into it, people are going to drop off and go back to doing what they've been doing. Now, the good news about this not probably happening is that all the codexes are going to have Crusade missions and more Crusade content. So as long as Games Workshop sticks to it and not just let it drop off the face of the earth after about 6 months, then Crusade has a chance. But otherwise, if they don't, people are just going to go back to doing what they've been doing. Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt my own video, which is on Monday. There was something that I totally missed to talk about, and that was modifiers, specifically negative modifiers. Now, the week before we heard that negative modifiers were going to be capped at -1, people were going back and forth. Well, maybe it only means flyers, or maybe it doesn't mean anything else. Maybe I can still use my possess bomb. Well, it turns out that the -1 modifier is the hard cap. Now, this doesn't mean that if you have something that's -3, it's useless. You still get some use, very small use out of it. If someone has, say, +2 or +3, those -3 modifiers will be applied to those bonuses. You just can't go below -1 when you finally do the final math on determining what you need to roll to score a hit or wound or whatever it needs that you need with those modifiers. So that's that with that. So anyway, God, I said that many times? Well, let's get on with it. Back to the video. Okay, Wednesday was the turning point on news and speculation. We got huge news, and that was about missions. In here we got the news that there's 18 new missions, 6 of which will be Eternal War missions, which will be primarily for 2K games and match play. The rest are for smaller games, for other things, but that is what we got. 6 new missions, and they are looking like they were complete designed by previous mission makers like the Nova mission format, but most importantly the ITC mission format, which was also announced I think a couple days before that the makers of the ITC, Frontline Gaming, will be having all their major events run Eternal War missions from Games Workshop. So this is big news. This means that Games Workshop is going to be taking over mission control, and we have the backing of the major events that are going to follow through and play those missions. So no longer can you complain about Mike Brandt this or Frankie Reese that. You have to actually complain to GW and say, hey, you made a crappy mission. Why are we playing it? Can you change it? So huge news, but even bigger news for just your average gamer that doesn't play competitively or plays in large events is that we have this new thing called actions. And so these actions are amazing. At least initially sound amazing. And that is that for scoring secondary points, at the very least, you're gonna have to perform tasks with your units. Now, as I was saying in my previous video last week, that it looks like elite armies are getting a boost, and that why would you take troops or battalion or brigade? Well, this is one of the reasons why you take it, because you're gonna want your lonely tactical marine squad, if people still have tactical marines. Anyway, your lonely intercessor squad of 5-man is going to want to go do a secondary objective, and they're going to want to, capture the flag or whatever millions of ones they're going to have. And these actions are going to get you those victory points. So instead of shooting, using a psychic power or whatever, you're going to do these actions and score yourself victory points. Big news, great news, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But actions will be introduced as codexes are released. So this means that we're going to have a new form of codex creep. Yay! So when the Necron Codex book comes out, which looks like it's going to be the first one off the bat, and also another thing we might want to speculate about is, are we going to get a Space Marine Codex book right after the last one we had last year? Knowing GW, that's probably the case. So let's just say we get Space Marines and Necrons right up. They're going to get a whole host of actions that no one else is going to have, and therefore they could score objectives much easier. So it's going to be interesting to see how event organizers and planners handle this. Luckily for us, there's a virus going on, so we won't be playing any tournaments anyway. But at the same time, this is a dangerous proposition, as how are those actions balanced? Are they going to be as thoroughly balanced as what it seems 9th edition has been balanced for? So that is my one caveat with actions. It could be a rolling snowball of suck. So hopefully that won't be the case. Now, the other ginormous, humongous news on Wednesday was that we got our first hint at point costs. And these point costs came out as intercessors and cultists. Now, at first glance, they said, oh, well, points are going up. This is how we're kind of going to always do additions. We're going to start high, and then so we can cut back as we need to adjust things as chapter proofs come out. But, well, this sent everyone in a tizzy for Horde players, because they saw the cultists go up by, a whopping 40%, while I think the intercessor went up by a whopping only 20%. So that's a big deal, because if they're going to scale in that random way, that means that hordes are going to be in for the suck. And even in the videos throughout the week, Stu has been kind of hinting at hordes are going to suck. Frontline Gaming has been kind of hinting at hordes are going to suck, and that elite armies are on the rise. So my speculation from last week looks to be so far on track to be that elite armies are going to dominate, while hordes are going to fall by the wayside. One final thing I do want to mention about Wednesday is that Stu repeated again that vehicles, tanks, and monsters are going to be getting a huge boost in 9th edition. And so far, it looks like that is the case from the rules we're getting, but just something to keep in mind of. We want to track to see if that is actually going to be the case. So, command points. That was Thursday, and we got all we needed to know about command points, and that was that it depends on the size of the game, not on how many brigades or battalions or detachments or whatever you take. It depends on the size of the game, and that is, if you're playing a 2K game, you're going to start with 12. That means Custodes start with 12, IG start with 12, Genestealer Cult start with 12. Everyone starts with 12 if you're playing a 2K game. Now, this is where it gets squirrely. Detachments now cost CP. And the example we got was a battalion, which costs 3 CP to have. So if you get a battalion, you're going to be down to 9 right off the bat. Now, of course, you can take a warlord and that 3 CP has gone away. But if you take multiple battalions or multiple detachments, you're going to cost you CP. I'm going to assume that the small detachments only cost 1 CP, because if they cost 2, then that's going to be crazy. But this is the attempt by Games Workshop to stop soup. Now, we also don't know, and this is speculation train right here, we don't know if an allied detachment of some sort is going to be introduced, and if that's going to cost an even more amount of CP, so they even force you down the mono path. But what isn't clear, and, well, I shouldn't say, what is clear but people are not wanting to hear, is that what about sub-factions within a larger faction? I'm talking about all the different legions in Chaos Space Marines, say the Thousand Suns magic cults, that sort of thing. How is this going to work out? Because that's how those armies have been staying competitive, is by being able to take Alpha Legion, Word Bearers together in a combination in order to conquer and destroy your enemy. Now, it looks like you're going to be spending a crap ton of CP just to make those lists competitive, which eats into your overall CP cost. One more thing about CP2 is that you just don't start with 12. Over the turns, you get to generate more CP. Now, this was shown when we got to see how the phases were broken out earlier in the week, but it was clarified here, and so every turn, basically, you're going to get an additional CP. Now, I also want to mention specifically about this is that also happened earlier in the week is that missions also determine how many CP you get. So while we saw one Eternal mission from Warhammer 40k community, we don't know what the other missions do. And it was mentioned that missions can determine how many CP. So there could be a mission out there that says you generate more CP if you generate these kind of victory points. So let's hope it's a whole new realm of CP generation. So we'll have to see, but for right now, it looks like if you're going strict mono, you're going to be in the catbird seat. If you try to go and make weird, funky armies with different attachments, trying to manipulate force organization charts, that sort of thing, you might be screwed. So this Friday finally had us kind of tone down all the excitement from Wednesday and Thursday, with Warhammer 40k Daily being a very boring affair with the exception of Stu telling everyone to stop freaking out about point costs, which is a good message to have. Who wants to freak out about point costs when you see cultists go up by 40% and Space Marines only go up by 20%? Who would want to freak out about that? That your poster boy army might become the best army in the game continuously for over edition over edition. Who would want that? Maybe some other factions might want some love, maybe might want to be good. But anyway, stop freaking out because we don't have all the information, which is true, we don't. But at the same time, you did say everything's going up in cost, and so far it looks like you're really sticking it to hordes. So to you, Stu, let's hope you're right and we shouldn't freak out. Now, the other news on Friday, which was the only other big news, is that we finally got table sizes, which are, oh my God, changing. So we saw that the minimum size of a board now for a 2K game is something like 44 by 60, so that's like almost 4 feet by 5 feet. Now, God bless the internet, because we got this wonderful image, which I'll put up right now. Yep, you can see that is someone cutting up their a little bit under $100 mat to show that, look, Imperial Knights can kill everything now if we go with the minimum size board. That's why the word minimum is used, because it doesn't mean you have to play at that size. It means that there's a range in which you can play. This is basically GW saying that, guess what, if you have a dining table, you can play your game on a dining table now. So this is great news. Now, will events start using these smaller tables? We don't know. We actually have to have events to do that. But as I said earlier, we're not going to be playing in any events for any time soon, so we'll have to wait and see. But for now, I'm guessing that 4x6 is going to still be standard for a 2K game. This just gives everyone an option, and so thank you, GW, for giving everyone an option. I do, though, wish that you would have made it 3x5 instead of this odd, almost 4 feet by 5 size table that you want people to play on. But basically, it's taking a bunch of kill team boards and folding them out to make this size. So that's where they got that number. Anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You made it this far, which means you definitely like this video, or at least you are getting some amusement out of it, so please do that. As well, there is a post where I continue this discussion and I talk about playtesters and how this edition of 9th edition is going to be the edition that determines if playtesters are a viable way for Games Workshop to test their game out. So go read that article. Like I said again, smash like button, hit subscribe. Thank you everyone for getting this far, and see you guys next week.